I'm trying to think, you've played real people before, I feel like. I don't know if, if it's Wayne at the back of your mind, you're playing such a recognizable icon. And from what I understand, I believe Mark and Rick were really helpful in your research.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, the greatest challenge of this movie, and there were many, was that they were going to see the film when this was over. And I thought about that often. But yeah, they were just extremely, helpful and supportive and always available to answer questions. And also was able to meet Janet, which was very honored to meet her and spend time with her in her home. Neil's sister, June. Damien mentioned we got to spend time with her at the farm where Neil grew up. I'd never had more help on a film. Really, between family, friends, colleagues of Neil, as well as Jim's thoroughly researched book, and him constantly being on set. It was. I've never had more help and more people that were happy to help. You could really feel how much love everyone had for Neil and Janet and their legacy, and wanted to, make sure that they gave us every bit of information they could, so that, if something was inaccurate, it wasn't because they left it out.
And I want to ask the actresses, because something I love so much about this movie is that quite often in films like this, the female characters are sort of on the sidelines looking worried. And that's true of often wives in any historical film. But Janet is such a powerful character, not just to Neil's story, but to the story overall. And Olivia, Patricia, she really shows us kind of the personal impact that these men risking their lives have. Were you sort of surprised when you read the script just how complex these roles were, and is that part of what appealed to you about the parts?
Definitely, to get to play a woman that is both strong and on the team and not in the shadows, and then also shown to be vulnerable. That's like an incredible character. So yeah, that was definitely what attracted me to the role, and I think Josh really made a point of that in his story, to have it be about the family, not just the man.
Yeah. It was devastating to see her after she lost her husband. I didn't know if, we just wouldn't see her again, and then when we do, it's like really, really tough.
I think the thing is that Janet and Pat and all the women who were left at home were extraordinary, but I think it takes a filmmaker like Damien, who those stories are there. It's not like those women were always there, just nobody was interested. The story was here. The story was with the men who were going to the moon, and that's what I think the film's so amazing at doing, is the humanity of the men who were going was also not that important to anybody. Nobody really wanted to know that they had lives and that they had arguments with their wives and their kids and, all those things. And I think it takes a filmmaker to shine the light on that and say that that's the real story, really. That's the story we want to know. We don't want to know what we've been told and fed and, makes us believe in heroes and that all these people have superpowers. And I can't read a script that's like that, I'm afraid. And so when I read, it was just, I just read the script and was just like, that's something I want to, please let me be in it, really.
And were you able to consult with Janet?
Not directly, no. I never got a chance to meet her. I spoke to two of her very close friends, Valerie Anders and Jan Evans, who were extraordinary, really. It's quite amazing and also a bit scary when you talk to people and they say, you do realise you're going to play someone who's truly special and whose friends love her and who gave so much of herself for other people. And because then you go, oh God, I've got to do that. And Rick and Mark were so generous and kind and never made me feel like I was a weirdo, kind of asking really, questions about the working of the house and, what their relationship was like with their mum. And that was so important. we're so lucky that we had that generosity and kindness, really.
And Rick and Mark, I know that sadly we lost Janet just a few months ago. What is it like to see this story, especially when it's so accurate? It's got to, ring even more true. What is it like to see your parents and yourselves portrayed on screen like this?
Well, I've seen the movie 4 or 5 times now, and I saw it again last night, and I'm still crying. My wife has a tissue, and she just kind of very quietly hands it to me, and I try to make sure nobody's noticing, but that's the impact of these performances and at a personal level, and so I think that really speaks to how authentic again the movie is and the performances are.
One thing the movie touches on that nobody really talks about, or at least I haven't seen it yet, is how supportive the wives were of one another. That was a key piece of making that work. And there's a scene where I think you two and Marilyn C. are I think in your house, and that kind of stuff happened all the time. And the wives really were the one, because the guys were gone. They were gone a lot, and they were the only ones that could sort of relate to one another and help each other out, and that's a very important story and a very important contribution to making the whole thing work.
By the way, when you knew Neil's sons were going to be here, did you expect kids to come out? Because there was part of me that was like, oh, that's right, they're grown men now. I actually do love the relationship between the wives so much, and you guys have great chemistry together. I'm sort of curious, was that instantaneous, or is that something that sort of built up?
Yes, it was.
Was it instant? She came over for a dinner.
I did.
She brought her daughter.
Yeah.
Like creepy obsession with.
She loves my daughter much more than she loves me. Yeah, I don't really. I think we all had it felt like there was no start of the movie. It didn't feel like we were like, okay, this is the first day of shooting, everyone behave yourselves, quit, start acting. I think it was really slow, and we all just got to know each other, and then suddenly we started shooting and no one was really paying attention, and then, it felt like it was seamless, really.
Right.
And I think sometimes that tension and that kind of can stop people having actual relationships, and I think a lot of the relationships are just bled into one, really. But I really loved Janet and Pat. I just loved it. I loved that relationship, and they were so different. My God,
I know.
Such different women, but found such a unity and kind of understanding, and really loved each other.
Yeah, and we got to. I know you guys had to spend a couple weeks improvising as a family, and then also I got to join on the last day of that. We hung out at the pool while Neil cleaned the pool, and Janet and I just got to sit there and sip lemonade and tell him how to do it. And but it really was helpful. I feel like Damien really cared about helping us all develop authentic relationships, and having that time to improvise and laugh and joke with one another gave us kind of the foundation to film some of the scripted stuff.
You guys have talked about the accuracy of this movie, and I know you I guess, commissioned Josh Singer, the Oscar-winning writer of Spotlight, who's so good at combining journalistic with artistic. And did that attention to detail, did that make it harder on you, or did it not matter? Like you were going to be accurate at all costs?
No, I think especially because Josh was there shouldering so much of that burden, it was much easier than it would have been. That was my big worry in a way before tackling this, more so than trying to tackle space sequences or the set pieces. It was my first time tackling a subject matter that wasn't kind of my own experience. Everything I'd done up till then, I'd written myself and largely kind of at least paralleled with experiences I'd had. And here, I knew I needed to reach outside of myself, and so I wanted to work with another writer. I was very, I like to sort of toot my horn and say that, because it's true, that I hired Josh before Spotlight was ever shot. So I got to kind of go around town, being very proud when Spotlight did what it did. But I think that movie and other works of Josh's speak to just, as you're saying, this combination he's able to find between between the sort of dense, factual, journalistic approach, and using that to carve out a story and to carve out something that can be cinematic. But he spent about 4 years researching this, and while I was shooting La La Land with Ryan, he was spending time at the Cape and at Houston, and meeting with former astronauts and spending time with Rick and Mark, and so there was already this incredible foundation between him and Jim Henson, an incredible foundation by the time Ryan and I and the rest of the cast really sort of dove in, and then it was kind of all up to us to do our own independent research, and for every cast member and also every department head here to just sort of, involved in the movie. Everyone, I think, took it very seriously, but that was especially because of the bar that had been already set by Josh and Jim.
Did that attention to detail, did that ever become difficult? Because Ryan, I'm claustrophobic. So you're really in these like tin cans, and I think they're like sealing you in. I mean, did you have to just sit in there for hours, and what did you do to pass the time?
Just sort of sat in there for hours. There was always someone, when we were shooting the mission sequences, there was always somebody who had been directly involved with that mission in some way. Like, for instance, when we shot the X-15 sequence, Joe Engel was there, who was the last living X-15 pilot, or Al Warden, or Frank Borman. So we had I think they were obviously there to help ensure the accuracy, but I think they were also there to ensure that it was impossible to complain because they had really experienced it. So there was, anytime you thought you would see them and you'd think, oh, that's right. It was immediate perspective, helpful perspective.
Did any of the astronauts, was there any sort of a boot camp where they, taught you how to properly float in space or anything like that?
I went separately. I started a little bit later, and
because you're Buzz and no one wants to be
exactly,
around
it was
you.
sort of helpful to be a little alienated. And we did this sort of a zero-G simulator. It was a dream come true. I was really. I felt like a kid, going to space camp. It was awesome.